Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, the show designed to help make middle age your prime time of life by defying the notion that once you reach 40, 50, or even 60 years old, your crowning achievements are all behind you. Regardless of whether you're just approaching 40 or are firmly entrenched in your middle years, it's time to launch your very own personal journey toward a joyful and purpose-filled second half of life. Each week, host Roy Richards, an expert on midlife renewal and author of A Midlife Challenge, Wake Up, will discuss the challenges common to middle age and help guide you to a brighter tomorrow. Now, here's Roy.
Well, it's March, and in the northern climes, we're eagerly awaiting the start of spring. Warmer weather, the return of green grass, green leaves, and flowers, and for many of us, the end of cabin fever, wintertime doldrums, and return of the promise of spring. And this time of year, I'll bet a lot of you dust off and update your bucket list, those ambitious goals for the remaining months of this year. And it sounds like a promising idea if that bucket list actually inspires you to take action to accomplish those goals, and you don't have the same old bucket list every year with nothing accomplished. But here's a switch. My next guest, Hall of Fame speaker and critically acclaimed author, Jane Jenkins Herlong, urges you to replace your bucket list with a trash it list. And she's sure to suggest why the best first step to accomplishing positive, often incredible life changes is to throw out the trash. And Jane cites her own life experience, and to quote from her promotion, I learned how to throw away negative talk and train my brain to be positive in order to tackle insurmountable odds, and she's here to help us do the same. And once you learn of her accomplishments, I'm certainly you'll agree that that's precisely what Jane Herlong has accomplished. And here's her bio. After growing up dirt poor on a farm in rural South Carolina, Jane went on to become Miss South Carolina in the Miss America pageant, and she's a vocal recording artist and award-winning professional singer who has performed all over the world, including Radio City Music Hall in New York City. I'm sure you've heard of that venue. And she's a global award-winning speaker who recently was inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame, and she's author of numerous critically acclaimed books, including her latest, the one we'll talk about today, Rhinestones on My Flip-Flops, Choosing Extravagant Joy in the Midst of Everyday Mess-Ups. I've had a few of those, that's for sure. I'm sure we all have. Hello, Jane Herlong, and we're most honored to have you here with us today on Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
Well, that's great. I appreciate it, Roy. I'm looking forward to sharing with y'all, and we've got a little cabin fever in the South, too. We've had some strange weather, so we can identify with that.
Yeah, well, before we get down to serious business, in a video from your website, you reveal that although you didn't become Miss America, you took away from the pageant far more valuable prize. Please tell us what that prize was.
Well, it was the doggonedest thing. I was Miss South Carolina, had just competed Miss America, and I had just previously been introduced at a function by a very handsome young man, and as fate would have it, after a couple of appearances, I was asked to speak at a banquet, and he was my escort.
Oh.
And I was in a relationship, and he was too, and I was kind of joking around with my business manager. She said, Thomas Herlong wants you to sit by him. And I said, oh, really? Who's his little country bumpkin girlfriend? She said, Miss America, the girl that beat you. And I just, to be honest, Roy, I thought to myself, I don't lose twice now. Once is enough. So we hit it off, I'm telling you. And I really think it's because we were both prayed up and ready for the partner to meet each other, so to speak. And all of a sudden, it was just like we just knew. And lo and behold, it was a week later. I mean, a week. I didn't even date him during the week, and he asked me to marry him. And so I tell everybody I didn't win Miss America, but I did marry her boyfriend.
Yeah, and that ring lasted a lot longer than the crown probably did for the.
Yeah. That is the truth. It's been a 38-year crowning moment for me to get a great husband, which I'm very thankful for.
Well, as Miss South Carolina, you were a poised, charming, and beautiful young lady, and yet you describe yourself in youth as a homely, bullied farm girl. And I know girls and boys, too, in their early teens go through an awkward stage, but I can't imagine you as ever being homely. Can you pinpoint any specific instances from your childhood? Maybe everybody
thought I was a boy. I dressed like a boy. I acted like a boy. I wanted to be a boy. And I'm glad I'm not all caught up in this gender thing that's going on this day and age.
Well,
that would be interesting.
Certainly, I can tell from your photo from Miss America days that you didn't look like a boy then. When
No, I renovated myself pretty good. But I just remember people teasing me so badly because I was such a tomboy. Yeah. And then, first grade, lost the front teeth and looked like a little vampire. Yeah. And wanted to get picked for the beauty pageant, which was a joke, literally. Got laughed at by the high school girls, but just kept persevering.
Yeah, children can be cruel to other children, that's for darn sure, even teenagers. But, well, obviously you were able to trash your negative thinking to become a tremendously well-adjusted and successful woman, now a mentor to others. Can you pinpoint one specific incident or point in time that launched you on your journey to a brighter tomorrow? What was your initial step in silencing that inner critic, that all that trash that had been piling up inside your mind?
Well, I remember I was trying so hard to do my very best academically, and I just it was a struggle.
Yeah.
And I remember one teacher she kept telling me, I see in you that you can become everything I feel like you want to become. And that, and surround yourself with people that encourage you. And I remember, too, my mother encouraged me as well. And so with that combination, if someone sees that seed, that if it's, I come from a farm now, Roy, so I'm going to do the germinating and the planting and the sprouting. But that, all of a sudden, I started to see what other people were telling me, and I trusted them. So I think you need to surround yourself with, Zig Ziglar, who was one of my favorites, always said, be a good finder. Find good in people.
That's so true, because if you surround yourself with negative people, you always tend to sink to their level. But if you surround yourself with people that are positive and present a positive image and believe in you, then you start to believe in yourself. It makes so much sense to me.
It does. And I think, I have a speech I call "Don't Throw Tomatoes at My Field of Dreams." And it's
well, Iowa's the place from the original Field of Dreams, the movie. So
that's right.
Don't throw any tomatoes in there.
And for y'all, it'd be "Don't throw corn at my field of dreams."
That's true. Besides, that corn dries out for the hogs, and it's pretty hard to get hit by those.
But I talk about you got to find your shine, and I'd shine up the tomatoes, and then you have to cull or get rid of what's not good, and there are things in your life, there are people in your life, and then know when to plow up and know when to plow through. So I really live by that. Of course, I say it with humor.
Well, all of us are aware of the negativity in today's world. Our parents, teachers, and close friends telling us, no, you're not good enough or you're not capable of that. And on your website, you reveal that you've heard, "Oh, no, you can," a number of times. But what's the motto that you have adopted as a guide to your life? I love that.
I say you look at no and think next.
Oh, that's great. How do you do that? Just somebody says no, you want to prove them wrong, or how does that work?
Well, I say one of the greatest principles in life I found on a bumper sticker, and it said, "What if the hokey pokey really is what it's all about?" Yeah. And I think that's true, because I think if you put your right foot in, which is doing the right thing, and then you shake it off, so when these things come at you, shake them off and turn it around and see another angle and just try it, because you never know unless you try. But, sadly, Roy, there are a lot of people that they don't want you to achieve, because if they haven't achieved what you have, it creates a problem. They're happy for you until
your best friend may no longer be your friend. It's not the friend you should have had in the first place, but if they're jealous that you achieve something that they're trying to achieve or can't achieve and try to pull you back, that's the last thing you don't need.
Right. I mean, and that person is not willing to do what you did to get to where you got, so to speak.
So true, too.
I think so.
You talk about the hokey pokey. We once had a University of Iowa football coach, Hayden Fry, who always used to have his players do the hokey pokey after they won a football game. So I guess he would agree with you. Well, as you point out on your website, successful people move from survive to thrive when they uncover what you call a mindset to achieve. Any suggestions on steps we can take or areas we should work on in order to, as you put it, master your runway?
Yes, I think that you have to seek out people that you want to achieve, maybe not what they've achieved, but you hang around with successful people that are creative thinkers.
Yeah, and you don't have to compare yourself to them and think you have to accomplish everything they've accomplished with that. That's
always been something that I've done in my life, Roy. I'll find, just like the world of pageants. I would see a contestant that I thought was incredible, and I wouldn't be jealous and talk about her. I'd sit down and talk to her.
Yeah,
I wanted to get to know her. I mean, what is it that makes you stand out?
Yeah,
and then you study successful people. You do. You study successful people.
Yeah, well, that's great. And, also, I think you mentioned on your website that you need to be assertive, and you can't just sit back and expect everything to happen for you.
That's right. I mean, you can only blame yourself. I mean, you control that part of your destiny. I mean, I like to stay busy, and I like to stay relevant and active, and so I do things to keep me in the world of speaking today. I'm making phone calls, I'm sending out postcards, I'm working on my website. I mean, that keeps me going. The Bible says without vision we perish.
That's so true. But
you got to have something, a goal in front of you.
And another thing that so few people are willing to do is accept personal accountability. Everyone always wants to make an excuse why they can't accomplish what somebody else accomplished, or run somebody else down, or make a person it's somebody else's fault because I didn't get this or do that. But that
so true. We're eating up with that one. All it does is keep you in the mud pit. You just stay on that wheel of misfortune, and it doesn't get you anywhere.
With the other hogs, right?
That's right.
Well, on your website, you remind us that humor can be quite handy in diffusing embarrassing situations, managing difficult people, and controlling our own emotions. How do we condition ourselves to laugh at the uncontrollable? That's always been hard for me. But
well, the way I think God wired me is I just see funny stuff. I mean, I'll have my friends, they'll hang out with me, and they'll say, okay, how'd you see that? And I just, this morning, I have a newsletter I send out, and I wrote about my mama's possum jacket. She loved that possum jacket, but she didn't know it was possum.
Oh.
So I wrote,
it was mink?
Well, she did until she read it was a New Zealand possum, and then she decided that it was educated, and that's how she called it, an educated. She made peace with the possum.
Yeah,
and I just wrote about things that possum vest reminds me of, and one thing was it was funny. I mean, my mama loved to laugh.
Yeah.
And then that, she accepted things and made peace with things. And then she saw things from different angles. I said, just like she'd flip that vest, she could see things from different angles.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of need to read something funny, listen to something inspiring. I mean, pick up an old Reader's Digest and find one of those funny laugh out loud moments, read something. Go online, Google funny things. And it really does loosen up your brain.
Well, I noticed in a section on your website called Jane's Story, you include a wonderful statement regarding the true value and purpose of awards and accolades that you have received. Can you please tell us what that value is? Because I think you have so much wisdom in that statement.
Well, I just feel like I think people that have achieved success, they don't sit there and read their own and believe their own press. I think it's a way of serving other people, because the joy I get, and of course I have to make a living at what I do, whether it's writing, speaking, singing, but I just love when people come up to me and just say, tell me what is it about you that you can share with me to help me with this situation or that situation. And I think the more achievement you have in your life, the more a humble servant to me is the answer to that. Be a humble servant and give back and help other people.
I love how what you say is awards and accolades don't mean anything unless you can use them to help others, and that meant so much to me because it's so true that nobody sits around and slaps themselves on the back for the rest of their lives.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The minute you start slapping yourself, you might as well slap yourself in the face because you're done.
That's a good point. Well, let's talk a bit about your latest book, Rhinestones on My Flip-Flops. That's the most intriguing title. What message is it intended to deliver?
Well, I think we all have moments that we can define as maturity or moments that we can have as an opportunity to turn around a flip-flop.
Yeah.
And when you have things happen, you don't flop. You flip it around and try to figure out a way to be better. And what I did was I used iconic women of the Bible, the ones that we sort of study maybe in Bible school coming up as children. And I talk about deceived Eve, or the woman who doesn't think she has enough, and she steps outside of the plan that is so good for her and her family and her husband and her faithfulness. And she thinks going out after work might be the fun thing to do. And then she gets deceived and she makes some stupid mistake. Yeah. And she realizes she already had everything. And she didn't realize she had it until she lost it.
Yeah, I love the chapter titles: Fabulous Esther, Salty Mrs. Lot, and Mary, Did You Know, and Domestic Diva Martha. I got a kick out of that. And actually, what was your intent including these stories of biblical women who lived thousands of years ago? Are they relevant to today, their stories?
Oh, completely. I think that book has a chapter for every woman in every stage of life. You've got the young mother starting out. You've got now I'm taking the domestic diva Martha is the Southern woman who works so hard to make everything perfect. She's miserable during the event. Yeah. And that's synonymous around here, and I'm one of them. And then Fabulous and Fearless Esther was the woman. And there comes a time, Roy, where you got to step up and say, all right, I got to do the right thing and be brave.
Yeah.
And that's what Esther did. Women, there's a pivotal time when all of us have to step up to the plate and take hits for doing the right thing, regardless of how we feel. And I love that chapter on Esther. And then the little middle-aged Naomi, the little whiny Naomi. My name is bitter. I'm pitiful. And we all get there, too.
Yeah.
And yet God used her in the lineage of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. And then the mother of Jesus, too. So to me, every single woman in that book has a flip-flop and a sparkle and shine moment. But bless Mrs. Lot's heart, she had brimstone. She didn't get any rhinestones.
No, that was a fascinating book. Well, your book seems to be written for and all about you women. Should we men read it also? Will it shape our lives the same way that it shapes those of our wives and girlfriends? Or should we just leave it give it as a gift to them?
Right. You understand the women. And boy, that's an endless topic.
I know there was one man critic in the Amazon section that said he got a lot out of the book, so I guess we men should read it. I know I enjoyed the preview thoroughly, but
yeah, you never know. You might go, oh, that's why my wife's like that. I get you.
Well,
this has been the best book I've ever read.
Where's the best place for our listeners to go, male or female, to preview and purchase your book, Rhinestones on My Flip-Flops?
Well, there's always the website, which has other books that I've written and some comedy. I'm on Sirius XM, and that's been a fun thing. And you could go to JaneHerlong.com, HERLONG.
Yeah.
And the book is also available in most bookstores. And then there's the proverbial Amazon, who seems to be dominating our lives. It dominates mine.
And Jeff Bezos is the richest guy in the world, although he's going to have to split half of that with his soon-to-be divorced wife.
Oh, it sounds like it, doesn't it? No more selfies for him.
He'll be poor with only $500 billion or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll just be a small dent in the pocketbook, apparently.
Yeah. Well, how about you in conclusion? Are you bogged down listeners with at middle age, spending all your time concentrating on past failures and lack of accomplishment in your life thus far? Are you mired deep in a comfort zone that really isn't that comfortable and is anything but joyful or awe-inspiring? Well, if so, I recommend that you take Jane Herlong's advice and throw out the trash in your life. And here's a great way to start. I love this quote from Jane in her Rhinestones book. I learned a great lesson years ago. What others think of you is none of your business, so do not make it your business. And if you can venture forward to remove all the trash clogging your mind and emotions and silence your inner critic, stop worrying about what everyone else is going to say or think about you and find that true inner person with God's help, what that wonderful person that you were created to be. And you'll find that it's a blessing both to you and to everyone around you when you have that positive attitude that Jane talks about. And I highly recommend you begin by visiting Jane's website, janeherlong.com, and previewing and purchasing her latest book, Rhinestones on My Flip-Flops. And you'll have a fun time reading it. As one Amazon reviewer puts it, Jane's book is profound, moving, and laugh out loud hilarious. And it sounds like our kind of book, doesn't it? And
yeah, we need more laughter every day. The older I get, the more I find something else to laugh at.
Well, thanks a million, Jane Jenkins Herlong, for joining us here today, and best of success in all that you do.
Well, blessings to you too. Thank you so much, and I hope y'all warm up.
Bye-bye for now. I'm certain that most of you out there are parents, and many of you still have offspring living at home. And if your kids have reached the age when they start to develop reasoning and start to test boundaries, think they're smarter than you are a lot of the time, are you tired of them not listening to you? Worse yet, are you sick of the arguing, whining, begging, and even demanding? And to paraphrase a line from an old George Strait country song, you know you still love your kids, but do you really like them anymore? And yes, it's possible to like your preteens and teenagers despite their often rebellious ways, and that's the message of my next guest, Sarah Sherman, longtime single mom and parenting expert. But here's a new twist. She also suggests that at times we parents need to treat our kids, especially teenagers, like employees. And she reminds us as us parents that guess what? At home, you're still the boss. And she's here to tell us why it's okay to bring home some of our workplace routine, especially in the area of discipline. And she's also here to introduce you to her 7 P's of positive parenting. And here are just a few of Sarah Sherman's accomplishments. She's an esteemed speaker, author, blogger, coach, and creator of the Create Cooperative Kids program. She's been a single mom for 25 years. While parenting, she studied for and completed both her bachelor's and master's degrees, and she rose through government ranks, making high-level decisions, then moved on to the corporate world, where she wound up in a corner office. And along the way, she was Girl Scout leader for 9 years, Boy Scout mom for 13, room parent for 13, soccer mom for 15, and several other moms along the way. Not to mention she's been active in her church, as she says it, since forever. And she's author of a brand new book published just last October, along with an accompanying workbook, both titled The Single Mom's Guide to Getting a Degree. But hey, Sarah's parenting message isn't just for you single moms. Single dads, married couples, and exes who are co-parenting will want to listen in also. And hello, Sarah Sherman. Welcome to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
Hi, Roy. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, let's begin with your surprising suggestion that we treat our kids like employees. Certainly, we don't love our co-workers and folks that report to us as much as we love our kids. Also, we can't fire our children. Why in the world do we want to treat them like our employees?
Well, those are all good and valid points. And when I say to treat your kids like employees, what I really mean is view yourself as a very good boss. We've all had we've all had bosses that were great, and we've had bosses that are not so great. And when we think about the impact of a not so great boss and how that makes us feel, so they're probably not very great because they're not consistent.
Yeah.
They don't acknowledge our work. They don't provide good instructions. You know, one time we were supposed to give them a report one way, and then the next time we do that, and they want it a different way. So we never feel like we get our footing. When that happens, we end up feeling, you know, like, why bother? You know, we're never going to be successful. We don't know what we're doing. The boss doesn't know what they're doing. And then that leads to a whole host of behaviors. So you have some people who get really disparaged. Maybe they leave. Maybe they, gossip amongst themselves, and they do lots of other things other than work. We've seen all of that. Everyone's had that experience.
Been there and done that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because it's such a universal experience, I find that it's very easy for my clients to relate to. And the kicker is, if we aren't good parents, if we don't do that boss role well, our children end up feeling exactly the same way.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, Phil, please fill us in. What are a few effective management strategies and practices that we can take from our workplace and we might be able to employ successfully at home? What are some of the similarities of being
Absolutely.
a boss, in other words, at home?
Yeah, so I always say, my tagline is priorities and plans for a kick-ass life. So just like your boss needs to do some strategic planning, like, really, where are we going? Where's all this work headed? You actually need to do that as a parent very proactively. We kind of, keep going through life, and we think we're raising our kids well because they're getting taller and they're going to the next grade. But if we really sat down and said, where are we guiding our kids to, so many times we haven't given thought to really defining that. And if we don't define it, we can never reach it. So we
really need to have a goal of what we're shooting at before we just blindly go about each day trying to parent unless we know where we're headed. What would be an overall objective for what your parenting role should be? Do you have something you would define as
Sure,
what the
absolutely.
ideal role would be?
So we want our kids to be independent when they're grown-up adults, right? We want them to be good citizens. We want them to have good relationships. We want them to know how to interact well. We want them to be smart so that they can go get a good job, be that through college or trade or, another format. So really that's our end goal. We want them to be prepared. We want to make them, they want to feel confident in that transition into adulthood and go forward and do well. And from a very selfish standpoint, like eventually you want them to take care of you maybe. So you certainly want them to be well prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, presume you're not suggesting we treat our 4 to 6-year-old preschoolers and kindergartners like adult employees. At what age should you begin assigning employee-like goals and responsibilities to your kids? How soon should you start with that?
Well, I actually do believe you start very, very young with that. Now, you tailor that to what, to the child's age, and you do that all throughout. But the parts about being consistent and knowing what you want to accomplish, if you haven't taught your child how to share from the beginning, if you haven't taught them how to ask for things appropriately and deal with frustration, and when you tell them no, if you kind of let them rule the roost with no real structure, and you try to start that when they're 10 or 13, that's going to be a huge hard fight. Yeah. So you do need to make it age appropriate, but you need to be consistent. You need to have that end goal in mind from the very beginning. Yeah,
that's for sure. Well, if you could, would you please identify and briefly highlight each of the 7 P's that you've developed? They all start with the letter P, and they make a lot of sense. And maybe you could run through those quickly for us.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So first up is predictability, and that goes with that being consistent. When your boss is not predictable, you don't know what's going on, it creates a lot of frustration for you, and the same thing happens for your kids. So as you figured out what you want to accomplish, you need to keep your behavior as predictable as possible so that they know what to expect from you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
The second P is to provide constructive feedback, and I have a formula for that. And, lots of times we have as adults, we kind of call it a backhanded compliment, but we do it with our kids all the time and we don't think about it. So you say, yes, you did a really good job of doing the dishes, but, you left wet dish towels all over the place.
Yeah, and when I was going to ask you the word that we should avoid, and you've just given it away. It's but.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us to replace it with what word did you say to replace the but with?
I suggest either dropping it completely or replacing it with and.
Yeah.
So you did a great job with washing the dishes, and next time, make sure that you put the wet dish towels where they go.
Yeah, because if you say but, it sort of negates everything you've set up to then, and it sort of pulls the rub out from under you feeling good about yourself.
Absolutely, it does. And of course, that's not typically a parent's intention, but just that little word makes such a difference. Yeah. And then always add just a few words of encouragement. So the example I have in my document is like saying, thank you, Susie, for folding the clothes. You did a great job matching all the socks. Next time when you fold the towels, please match up all the edges. You're doing so well with this task, and I'm really proud of you.
I see. Well, let's move on to number 3, praise. What's that? How does that get into that list?
Yeah, so praise is like acknowledgement, and we know in the workforce that pay is actually the third reason people stay in their jobs. Acknowledgement and appreciation are in the 1 and 2 spots. And it's, again, the same way with your kids. You need to acknowledge what they do. Sometimes we're so relieved that they've taken care of the jobs that they're supposed to take care of and their homework's done and their grades are going well that we forget to tell them out loud how important it is. So they're hungry for your attention. They want to please you, and it's really important that you pay attention and look for those opportunities to praise them. And when they're being a booger, that can be a really big challenge, but it's important that you still look for those opportunities to catch them doing something good.
Well, now, these your kids are not probably working as a job or anything like that, at least for you. What about the next one, possible reward? What do you mean by possible rather than always getting a reward?
Absolutely. So always getting a reward is kind of like getting a participation trophy for showing up in life, and that's something that's really criticized very frequently. And we know, that makes perfect sense. We all understand why that's the case. And if you always give your child a reward, like, you did this task, here's a cookie, you did this task, let's go to the store and get a toy, you're really kind of negating that internal reason that keeps them motivated to keep going. So it's important that you kind of mix it up.
Oh, I see. And you say intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful form there is, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Intermittent reinforcement, the best example of that is gambling.
Yeah.
So people keep coming back for the chance to get that reward. And so that's the same kind of situation that you want to create.
So it's possible reward is the 4th P. Then what's 5?
5 is patterns. And by patterns, I mean that you set up structure in your home for your kids so that, again, things are done the same way all the time. You've got a routine that they can plug into. So you have a morning routine, you have a when they get home from school or daycare routine, you have a bedtime routine. And again, that lends itself to, it's just a physical manifestation of the predictability. And it really provides a great deal of comfort to them. They know what's expected, they know how to execute, and it's the same way over and over.
And the next one, 6, is an obvious practice.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So once you get all of these things in place, you just have to keep working on it. And that means that, sometimes we see families where the kids don't do what they're supposed to do and nobody corrects that, which then reinforces in their minds that they really don't have to do it. So you're continually practicing. We all know that, everybody gets off track every now and again, and it's easy to kind of start down a whole new path, which is away from the goals that you said you wanted to achieve with your kids. So you have to pay attention and help them continue to practice so that they master those skills that you're teaching.
The 7 pace is something that I hadn't even thought about, but it's extremely important, doesn't it, to get that pace in line, make sure that you're not giving kids too much to do in too little time or whatever.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a fast thinker, so it's easy for me to say, you guys need to do this, 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 and this. And my kids now, you know, will communicate back to me, thank goodness. Hey, you know, that's too many things at once. Can you break it down for me so that I can be successful? So if the pace isn't fast enough, they're bored and idle hands or a doubles workshop. And if it's too fast, they can't keep up, they're not going to be successful, and they're just going to feel frustrated.
Yeah. Well, you offer visitors to your website a free printable download of the 7 Ps. How can our listeners obtain this download?
Simply go to my website, which is www.singlemomsasksarah.com. Pop in your email so I know where to send it, and you'll get it in a matter of moments.
Well, that's pretty simple.
It absolutely is.
Well, in terms of how it should be implemented, should I try to implement all 7 Ps of effective parenting at once, or is that too tough? Is it better to spread it out, or how do you introduce that to your kids?
I think that's a great question. No one's asked me that question before. I always say if you even implement one of them, you'll see a big change in your kids by bedtime that night.
Oh.
And I would, you know your family well, so maybe you need to introduce things slowly and kind of see how it goes, both for your kids' benefit and so that you can get the hang of them. And maybe you can do a couple at a time. Maybe you want to stretch it out, do one a week, and keep introducing. You know, it's kind of an experiment, so they will work as you implement them as works best for you.
Well, I'd like one final question regarding teen parenting, which is something so many of us either currently are going through or may soon go through, or
exactly.
have graduated from. But we all know that our teen can be loud, demanding, and argumentative, and they often sound and look like adults, but they're not really adults. They're still children. You reveal that for years you and your teenage son struggled through intense arguments, but you came up with a simple step that discovered and then helped you stay calmer and gentler when talking to your son. What is that step that you took, which really sounds imaginative? I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. It came, actually, I can't take credit. It came after lots and lots of prayer. And I just happened upon a photo of my son when he was young and sweet. And it was a photo that should not have been where I found it. So I'm certain it was all divine intervention, and I'm enormously grateful. But it was just a photo of when he looked so precious, and I picked it up and I thought, I just wish he was like that again. And then it just hit me that is who he is on the inside, and that I needed to nurture him instead of, sometimes we get afraid and we want to be strict and stern, and it's okay to be stern and consistent, but it's the delivery of that message. And so I started speaking to that little 2-year-old inside that big giant body, and it made all the difference in the world. He was more receptive, he felt love, he felt like he could trust me better, and he didn't feel he had to defend himself against me. It made a massive difference.
Well, tell us a bit about your new book, The Single Mom's Guide to Getting a Degree, How to Hit the Books, Raise Your Kids, and Keep Your Sanity. Why should a single mom up to her neck in alligators trying to raise the kids consider adding to their burden by studying for a degree?
Well, that's a great question. That's actually the first chapter, Why Bother? So it's because you're the only one who has, it's your income. So you have to get the most out of your, time away in employment, and you've got to squeeze out as many dollars as you can. So University of Buffalo studies showed that while most single moms have some college education and even a full degree, 80% don't have the education they need to advance in their careers. So they're stuck, and you really have got to grow that income to the best of your ability. And oftentimes, either finishing a degree or getting the next one makes a massive difference. It made a massive difference for me.
And you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. I think that's the most crucial part of your message, is to
Absolutely. We used to think that when, a woman became pregnant, she had to drop out of school, or when she was a single mom, she couldn't possibly go to school. And that's not the case. There's so many flexible programs, and I talk about all of them in my book, how to decide which program meets your needs, and it really is a buyer's market, so to speak.
Yeah, especially now with all these internet programs like Arizona State and a number of large universities offer these, along with special smaller colleges. So there's really tons of options.
There are tons of options, and more community colleges are they've always been economical, but in some cases they're free. So, for example, if you go to the 2-year college in Texas, it is free if you go on to get your 4-year degree. So you can really take advantage of a lot of opportunities to build your knowledge and confidence and your bank account.
Well, where should our listeners go to preview and purchase your books?
The book is on Amazon, so you can Google my name, Sarah Sherman, or Single Moms Ask Sarah, or the title of the book, The Single Mom's Guide to Getting a Degree, or you can just go to my website, and I have a link directly to the book from my website.
Oh, that's great. Well, you offer visitors the opportunity to join your worldwide Single Moms Ask Sarah community. What benefits does this community offer, and how does a listener join?
So you can join me on Facebook. There are over 18,000 single moms from around the globe who follow me there. I have a special private group that's a little more inclusive. It's called the Single Mom Pride, and there's a link to that from the Facebook page, and there are about 1,800, 2,000 women there from around the world as well. And the benefits of that is you have an opportunity to interact with other women who are going through the same experience as you are. It's very common for single moms to feel alone, and you don't often have time to go to a support group, but you can click into Facebook for a few minutes and connect with other women and see the challenges that they're experiencing. And I post a lot of information, a lot of tips, a lot of training, a lot of articles that are of benefit, and I answer questions. I also have a new podcast called Kick-Ass Single Momming, and I answer questions there as well that are sent to me ahead of time.
Oh, wow, we've sure covered a lot of ground in a limited amount of time. And I'm certain you'll agree that my guest, Sarah Sherman, is effectively fulfilling her stated mission of empowering you single moms to create your kick-ass life, rule your world, and achieve your goals, while at the same time accomplishing a parent's single most important function, preparing your kids for a happy and fulfilling adulthood as you transform your family into productive and effective goal-oriented team. And as I'm certain you realize by now, her sage advice is beneficial not just to single moms, but to every one of us, moms and dads, who still have one or more children at home. And as Sarah pointed out early in the program, you and your spouse, if you have one, are like the small business owner or CEO of your family unit, and you need to practice and perfect many of the same skills required of an effective boss on the job. And that includes establishing consistent patterns and ground rules for self and family, and then motivating your kids to live up to their full potential. And there's one additional non-work-related ingredient you'll need to mix in, and that's demonstration of unconditional love for each one of your kids, no matter how trying on their patience they may be. And thanks to me and Sarah Sherman, and best of success on your book and in all you do.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to chat with you today.
And thank all of you out there for listening. Tune in to our next program when my guests will present 3 steps to overcome anxiety. Goodbye for now from Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age.
You've been listening to Middle Age Can Be Your Best Age, hosted by Roy Richards, an expert on midlife renewal and author of both A Midlife Challenge, Wake Up, and Wake Up, Captain and Crew, Restart Your Engines. You can learn more about Roy and his Middle Age Renewal Training System by visiting his website, middleagerenewal.com.